Last week we spent about 400 hours on 4 recipes, and I was beating it with a machine instead of on the couch. So it's time to take a break from convoluted recipes and move on to some easier ones. Because of fitness influencers, I've developed a fear towards white rice, but along with pasta, they are the most effective foundation for the concept of a quick dinner. So today let's explore some over-rice meals that takes less than 15 minutes to make.
White rice matter! White rice matter!
Our first recipe is a classic one. We only need 3 components. From start to finish, everything's gonna happen in the same pan. I suggest that you use white onions too, because it's sweeter and it cooks faster. And ideally, you want to be using those frozen beef slices you get from Asian supermarkets. But as you guys know, I recently switched butcher shop, so I just left a few pieces of steak in the freezer for 30 minutes to firm up. We'll try our best to cut it as thinly as we can. I do have a deli slicer, but cleaning that thing takes more paper towel than in the bedroom. Plus, it's just a 15-minute dinner, bro. I'm just trying to find an acceptable way to shove food into my mouth. As you can tell now, I've completely given up on slicing it thin. After the beef and the onions, we'll make a very quick and simple sauce. Starting with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of mirin. I don't feel like taking out my 5-pound sugar bag, so I'm replacing 2 teaspoons of sugar with some maple syrup and 6 ounces of beef broth. I think traditionally they do dashi, but you know, you don't have to put in any oil if you don't want to, by the way. But I'm just gonna saute the onions a little bit to give it a tiny bit of color. I really don't think it makes any difference. You can just boil in that sauce. But it does make me feel better about myself, because dry frying raw onion and then boiling in sauce seems kind of savage. It's like carrying a lipstick around with no lid. I will evenly spread a layer of beef on top. It's looking a little thick, I know, but by the end of this, you're not gonna even tell the difference. I promise. As one of the final steps, we'll crack an egg directly onto the center. Put on a lid, let it simmer for 2 to 3 minutes, and then it's ready. It's not even 15 minutes, guys. I think it's under 10. Can't forget the scallion, the seaweed stuff, and what's about to come next involves a lot of skill. I have to somehow shimmy the entire content of the pan onto the top of the bowl without disturbing the aesthetic of it. This much broth is probably gonna hold us back, so let's dump out a little bit. What did I tell you? You can't even tell I hand sliced those beef. All my energy is going towards trying not to think of it as boiled onion and steak. But let's break the yolk. It's a healthy, high protein dinner, you know what I mean? Yolk, onion, beef, rice, all in one bite, and let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. Damn. I think dashi is supposed to be salty and beef stock is not, so the broth is a little on the bland side. Plus, the only seasoning for this entire dish was 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Overall, it's very comforting. The mild flavors makes you feel like you're being hugged by someone that smells nice. I'll give it 7.5 out of 10. If you make it, just put some salt in it. Our next recipe is a TikTok viral one, and they call it the chicken over rice, and let's give it a try. Are you surprised by the fact that I always have wet chicken in a Ziploc bag, just like how my uncle always have unwrapped candy in his jean pocket? Seems like the chicken's got into my knife, starting to look rancid. First, we'll do some crisscross scoring on the surface to expose more surface area for seasoning and cook faster. Is this making you uncomfortable? First seasoning, the most important one, will be salt. You can skip the rest if you want to. Sprinkle as you spread it open. We gotta make sure we hit all the mouth and grannies. And additionally, I'm just gonna do some Old Bay. There's a bunch more in the video, but I think it's not that important. The only other component will be the sauce. It's gonna be primarily I Give a Second Chance to QP mayo. I'll teach you the best way to get it to the top of the bottle. I ran out of it, so I'm gonna replace it with a little bit of Greek yogurt, and then replacing sweet chili sauce with chili oil and sriracha. The assembly will do it directly in the air fryer. We'll just lather it all over the cut up chicken surface and massage it into the crevices as well. There's no marination, just straight up air frying with the sauce on top. $3.75 for 15. To prepare for the landing on the rice, I'm gonna take out the lick fork. Almost dropped it on the counter. Glad I didn't though, because you guys in the comments will be accusing me of faking my mistakes. It's looking a little charred, so let's put more sauce on top. Don't you worry, what's left in the cup hasn't touched raw chicken yet. I mean, it's not like I care anyways. I feel like it's gonna be too spicy since we skipped the sweet chili paste and went straight to the chili oil. I'm gonna put a little bit of honey on top. It's my roommate's honey, so I can only use a little bit. It kind of looks like my forehead when I exercise. Alright, so let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. The chicken took on way more flavor than I thought, provided there's no marination or anything. And the decision to substitute mayo with Greek yogurt makes it taste less fatty. But you probably shouldn't put any honey on top. It's even easier than the dish before. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. This dish is from our boy Golden Balance. It's the chicken and rice from the famous New York City Halal cart. One way to make my chicken more questionable is have half frozen chicken thighs with chicken juice ice pieces flying all over the place. Garlic powder, paprika, turmeric, thyme powder, oregano, onion powder, salt, and finish it with some lemon juice and olive oil. I forgot the olive oil. He always tells us to marinate till we lose patience, but I never had patience to begin with. Starting the cold pan, I'm gonna put these chicken thighs skin side down. As the pan heats up, it's gonna render the fat and cooks it at the same time. After 2 to 3 minutes, we'll just flip it and get some color on the other side and take the chicken out. In goes 1 minced shallots. With a wooden spoon, we're gonna use the moisture from the shallots to scrape off all the foam. I didn't measure the rice, nor did I wash it. I really don't think you need to. I feel like rice produced in America are super clean. Right? All the thigh pieces back in, put on a lid. You either simmer on medium-low for 15, or you can put it in a 350-degree oven for 20. While we wait, we're gonna make the famous white sauce on top, which is basically just equal part yogurt and mayo, garlic powder, and a squeeze of lemon. I thought it was smart in saving dishes by mixing directly in a container, but I guess we have mixing bowls for a reason. Chicken is looking perfectly cooked, and the rice is looking a little wet and slippery.
Your rice too wet, you fucked up.
I'll take the bone out of the chicken, cut it into slices, and try to assemble as closely as possible to those chicken over rice carts. So dicing some tomatoes, and I'm just gonna use a bag of store-bought lettuce. After white saucing it up, let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. Definitely my favorite dish of the day. The chicken and the rice, even though it's cooked together, but they each take on such unique, distinct flavors that adds to the entirety of the dish. Tomato and lettuce provide such freshness, and the completion of the white sauce, I don't know if I should say this, but it makes it taste like a Big Mac. But I love those, so I'm not complaining. I'm fully impressed by the halal guys, and this chicken and rice is gonna be in my daily routine. 9 out of 10. I wanna be just like Cardi B, eating halal and driving a Lamborghini.
Halal, driving a lamb, so that bitch, I'm sorry.
Back to Ziploc bag chicken. I gotta tell you, this next one is a little bit traumatizing. The trauma comes from the name. Let me tell you a little story as we trim these chickens. The first time I encountered it was when I was going to a Japanese restaurant with my friend. On our way there, I was like, I'm gonna get some sushi rolls. What are you gonna get? And he goes, I'm gonna get mother and child over rice. So I was like, alright, I guess he's getting like an adult meal and a kid's meal. Are you like a pig or something? You don't look really fit right now. Obviously I didn't say it to his face because he's paying. But when we got there, I found out. Mother and child over rice means chicken and egg over rice. Like bro, I can't think of a worst way to name a dish. Somebody woke up one day and decided to disturb others by naming a dish that makes people think of how you just murdered a whole family and stewed them together. But anyways, we'll marinate the chicken in some sake. Back to the non-stick pan, we're gonna raw dog this onion, no oil or anything. And on top of the onion, we'll drop in this bowl of chicken thighs. Don't make it too full though, because we have other components coming. When everything's sizzling and you can smell the aromatics of the onion, we'll pour in the sauce. It's the same sauce we used for the beef earlier. Now we'll let it simmer for 5 to 6 minutes just to cook the chicken thoroughly. Now we'll invite in the children. You really don't want to move it at all. You want to cook and preserve the integrity by cooking the broth like that. But I'm gonna move it because there's too much broth and too much chicken, and ideally you want to use one of those really shallow pans. Not gonna move it too much though. We'll cover and cook for 2 minutes. You see how moving it make it like cloudy like that? Alright, back at it again with the skill move. Look at that. If there's a competition for this, I'll join and I'll win. This is probably the healthiest dish of the day. No oil, not a single drop, no sugar, no chemicals. High protein. It doesn't get higher protein than this. It just looks a little bit in reverse. I don't need to tell you that the taste is not particularly strong, but it does taste like it's less healthy than it actually is. Essentially, we just boiled onion, chicken, and poured egg on top. The chicken's pretty tender and the broth is flavorful. It's a 7 out of 10, but we'll add a point for health and take off a point for a traumatizing name. Next up, mapo tofu. Fun fact, this is actually PA's favorite dish. He's never had Chinese food till we went together when we were 14, and since then he hasn't really eaten that much else. And check out my amazing tofu cutting technique with my steady hands. and then we'll just flip it back into the same box and move on to the aromatics. Here's some GGS that we're gonna finely mince by hand. Oil into hot pan. This non-stick is really changing my life. I started having breakfast because of it. This just demonstrates to us how one piece of equipment in the kitchen can significantly improve the quality of your life. And if you're looking for a good set of cookware, please about 8 ounces of ground beef into the GGS that we're sauteing. We want to cook it until the beef changes color and start releasing the oil. This is when we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of spicy bean paste and a tablespoon of chili oil. I think traditionally you're supposed to put in a lot more ingredients and peppers and stuff, but my body can only handle so much, you know. After the heat activates the bean paste, we'll put in some sake, dark soy sauce, and some water. When the water comes to a simmer, we'll flip in the tofu from earlier, and this is the important part. The tofu is super fragile, so you don't want to poke it. And instead of putting peanut butter and honey on it, we're just gonna push it with the side of the spatula like that. You see how I'm coming from the side, all mindful and demure. Just let it simmer like that for 7 to 8 minutes. We're just trying to get the flavor into the tofu because everything's already cooked at this point. No, this is not milk. This is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and equal amount of water. It's just a little slurry that we're gonna stir in. You see how thick the sauce got? Topped with some scallion, now it's looking legit. The look of this dish and the steam coming off the bowl makes me feel as comforting as being hugged by someone who doesn't like to use deodorant. The entire track of my esophagus pretty much turned into ashes. Tofu packing flavor, also thermal energy. We forgot to season with salt again, so I'm gonna put a little bit of soy sauce on top. It's gonna be a lot better. Overall, the dish is super easy. The bean paste and the sauces are clearly carrying the table. Tofu, just soaking them all in. 8 out of 10. This next one is just a little bit more on the complicated side, only because it has 2 components. So over here we're chopping up some potato, carrots, and onions, and you can just store them in a container with some water so the potato doesn't get oxidized. We're going to be boiling everything in water anyways. As long as it covers all the ingredients should be enough, and a little scoop of chicken bouillon goes a long way. Simmer the vegetables through, and then we'll add the curry blocks later. A lot of chicken dishes today. Usually people want to pound their meat to get it even, but right now it's pretty late at night. I don't want to deal with my neighbors, so I'm just gonna use the knife to trim off the thick part to make everything level. The standard breading procedure, which is flour, eggs, and then some breadcrumbs, in this case panko. What you're witnessing right now though is the struggle of not preparing in advance and not wanting to change my gloves. So I opened this new box of panko with a single hand and pouring it without letting my other chicken hand touch anything. Right now the oil is about 350, and I keep spooning the oil on top to make sure all sides cook evenly and faster. You don't really have to, you can just fry on both sides. That's so crispy on the outside, just listen to this sound. Ksh. Ksh. The chicken crumbly bits are all over the top, but we can just assume it's salt. It's katsu curry, how can it go wrong, you know? So let's give it a taste. The classic can't be beat. Crispy, juicy chicken with a flavorful curry. Not too flavorful though, because I forgot to season again. 7 out of 10. Now towards the end of you watching me make this dish, and you're gonna be like, what is he doing? So I'm just giving you a warning in case you feel that way later. The inspiration for this dish is back in high school we ate shakshuka a lot for breakfast, and recently I've been seeing a lot of TikTokers make those Chinese tomato and egg dish, so I thought I'd simplify it and we can put it over rice. Since getting this pan, I haven't f***ed up a single egg yet. I'm getting more confident. We should attempt the omuraisu thing again in the future. Take out the eggs when they're hard scrambled, and then start sauteing some of the GGS left over from earlier. And this is the questionable step. I'm using like a can of chopped up whole tomatoes. I think you're supposed to be using fresh tomatoes and dice them up, so that way it's more fresh and sweeter, but I'll never allow the same ingredient to exist in 2 forms in my household. Plus the canned tomato is part of my brand and I never use it. I'm really not that big of a fan of canned tomato. We want to season with some soy sauce and cooking wine and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. If we don't count the quote-unquote tomato dicing, this probably only took like 6 minutes. I've had less hope for dishes that turned out surprisingly well, so let's not judge a book by its content. No comment on this one, but it's time to stop. If we keep going, we're gonna step into the category of struggle meals, and my stomach is not ready for that. None of these dishes are particularly bad or good, so if you start making them, I hope they save you time. Alright, thank you.